Good morning, friends, and welcome. Let's start our class today with the prayer together. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, friend, beloved God, great masters, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Layadi Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswarji, beloved Guru Deva, Paramahansa Yoganandaji, saints of all religions, we bow at thy feet. We ask thy presence at our satsang today, that we might feel uplifted in thy love, in thy joy. Om Shanti Shanti. Let's hear a song by Swami Kriyanandaji, and then we'll hear an excerpt on a talk by him on devotion versus emotion. Welcome again to everybody.
Oh, keep a level head, boys, and preach the lighter news. Don't disappoint the gentle folk. Our church needs better pews. Jim Brown was hired to clean the church. All week he kept it fair. That Sunday with his family, he came to worship there. That Sunday with his family, he came to worship there. Oh no, poor Jim, that may not be, for then there'd be a war. Our congregation are all white, and you know what you are. Our congregation are all white, and you know what you are. Back home Jim Brown knelt by his bed and wept till eyes grew dim. That night his room became a shrine, for Jesus came to him. That night his room became a shrine, for Jesus came to him. He said, "My child, don't feel so sad. For 20 years I too have tried to enter that very church with no more luck than you. Have tried to enter that very church with no more luck than you." Oh, keep a level head, boys, and preach the lighter news. Don't disappoint the gentle folk. Our church needs better pews.
When you go with love, then there's nothing complex about it. And really speaking, even though it's right, both devotionally and philosophically, to realize that God is infinite, nevertheless, He doesn't much care what your philosophy is. He only cares that you come to Him with your heart. And if it pleases you to think of Him as a person, then He will gladly come to you in that way. If it pleases you to think of God as your Divine Mother or your beloved, then He will come to you that way. He isn't just that, but He can be that for you out of love for you, because He's already become personal in creating you. He's already become personal in giving you a mother and a father to love you, suckling you through your mother's breast, spanking you sometimes when you were naughty. But He's personal already. He's talking to you personally through me. He's listening to me personally through you. There is that aspect to it, and if this is how we love God, remember that story that Master tells in the autobiography of the three hermits? It's a story of Tolstoy's. The three hermits were praying to God, but they didn't know the orthodox prayers. They never went to church. They were too busy praying. And so they invented a prayer of their own, and their prayer was, "We are three, thou art three, have mercy upon us." And it was an inadmissible prayer, theologically. And so the bishop of the area came, and hearing that they were very holy people, came and instructed them in the liturgical prayers. And they were very grateful to hear these prayers, and they thanked him, and they went to kneel and say their prayers, and he went off feeling he'd done a good job. And he was in a boat going from their little island when suddenly he saw these three men running across the water, catching up with the boat, and they said, "Your worship, please help us, we've forgotten the prayers you taught us." And the bishop said, "Never mind, go back to your own." When we can love God in that simple way, he doesn't care what we believe. I mean, it's absurd in a way to say, "We are three, thou art three." But it's what turned them on, and that's all that mattered. Whatever you can offer that lifts your heart is what counts. When a little girl plays with a doll, you don't spank the girl and say, "Don't be absurd, that doll doesn't know what you're doing." And why don't you spank it? Well, partly because it's fun and you don't want to spoil her fun, but also because you know that in playing with the doll, the little girl, you encourage the girl to have dolls and play with the dolls, because the girl will develop that kind of motherly love that she'll be able to give to a child someday. And it's helpful. It's helpful for children to have animals because it makes them more responsible. And although being a boy, when I was a boy, I'm still a boy, but when I was a little boy, I had infinite contempt for girls playing with dolls. It was altogether different with my teddy bear. If we want to, for example, in India, some people will take the worship of Krishna in a very personal way, and they'll take the little baby Krishna as a little image, and they'll bathe it and put it to bed, and all these things. And it's really not wrong. I mean, philosophically it may be absurd, but it's not philosophically. If you understand philosophy in the broadest possible sense, which includes this kind of personal worship, the only thing that could be wrong about it would be confining God to that form and not realizing that this is only a way of directing your energy toward something that will help you to direct that energy away from yourself and in a devotional mood. And then obviously you can begin to expand that love toward the infinite. An Indian young man from India told me, laughingly, he was thinking of it as totally absurd, that when his grandmother, who wasn't accustomed, had never seen radios before, heard a religious discourse on the radio, she would take a flower and go over and very devotedly put the flower on the radio. And to him this was ridiculous, but it wasn't ridiculous at all. She wasn't giving it to the radio. That was the only place she could think of to give it to God. And finally, what we have to do is realize that we're giving it from inside. And finally we reach the point, it's stages you grow through. The little girl stops playing with dolls and has to play with children. But that too is only a stage. Then you begin to, if your love is pure, to love everybody in a sense as your children, to become a vessel for the Divine Mother to express her love.
Welcome again, everyone. I'd like to start this morning with a reading from Awaken to Super Consciousness. These are Swamiji's words. The Maharani of Kuch Bahar told me she'd once asked her family priest why he intoned his chant so loudly. Well, you see, Your Highness, he explained, God is far away. If I don't shout, how will he hear me? Well, God isn't far away, of course. It is we who distance ourselves from him by the noise in our minds, a noise people often carry with them into their prayers and meditations. Loud chanting does have its place. It is good at the start of meditation, not for the reason that the priest gave in the story that Swamiji just told, but to command attention from our own minds. For loud chanting creates a magnetic flow, like a mighty river It can dissolve the eddies of thought and feeling that meander idly along the banks of the mind. This is such an important talk, an important topic, because we do need devotion. We need energy of the heart. We need enthusiasm. We need joy. We need to feel uplifted. We need to put ourselves behind what we're doing. Anything that we do, if we put our heart into it, it's more likely to be successful. Devotion is really commitment, isn't it? It's wanting to do something, putting yourself behind it, going to the distance. It could be devotion to your work, to your family, to your painting, to music, to singing, to business. Devotion could be in any number of things. But in our path, devotion is to finding God. It's not just having a little peace or some joy. Devotion is really opening yourself completely to God. And it's not overnight. It's a long distance. It takes a lot of fuel in your heart to go decades and decades of seeking God, decades of prayer, of trying your best to meditate, of offering your love, of singing, of chanting, of serving. And devotion means that you are 100% there. It goes up and down, but that your heart is really attuned to seeking and finding God. And I was remembering the story of Master, where a man came to him and he had a long list of questions, spiritual questions. And he asked the first one, and Master's response was, love God. And then the man thought, well, he didn't really understand me so well. He asked the next question. Master said, love God. And he asked another question. Master said it very loudly this time, love God. And Master got up and walked out of the room, because he knew until that man could open himself up, he would never be able to feel the presence of God in his life. And I was remembering someone who asked me recently about discipline on the spiritual path. Or what does it take to have discipline? And how can I be more disciplined? And what can I do? And an interesting answer came. And I thought, this is really what it's about. I said, if you love something, you want to do it. You don't have to keep beating yourself and forcing yourself. If the love comes through, if you can develop love for it, then you want to do it. You want to be there. If you love music, you want to play music. If you love singing, you want to sing. If you love running, you want to run. If you love cricket, you want to play cricket. Whatever it is, if you develop the love for it, then it's natural. Then you automatically want to do it. And I think we should come from that angle rather than I have to develop this. Just if we start to do things that develop love more, then the rest is carried along. I was remembering Master said to Swamiji, it's going to be a long, dry path for you if you don't develop love, devotion. Swamiji was very much in his mind, very intellectual. And he said he was sick of that. He wanted to have the experience of God, and he knew that was a block. And Master told him that. Swamiji got a harmonium. He began to chant. He prayed for devotion. And I remember this man who came to Swamiji. He was here in India, much like the fellow I just talked about, who asked all the questions. And he came to Swamiji, the same kind of thing. And he asked one after another. And I could just see he just was going in circles. And until you just really are more receptive and more open, then you just don't understand the deeper and deeper aspects of God. And so for us in our path, we have to develop that love. There was a very beautiful statue, is a very beautiful statue of Saint Teresa of Avila in Italy that I saw when I was living there. It's by Bernini. And it has the sphere. Christ has appeared to her, and she's in ecstasy, and a sphere is piercing her heart. And she goes into ecstasy from that love that comes from Christ to her. And that's where we're headed, to be able to be so open that we're just filled with divine love. And there was a wonderful, beautiful story of a man who was a disciple of Master. His name was Horace. And you've heard me tell this story before, but he just had very simple devotion, simple love for God. And he, someone asked about him, and Master said, oh, he's nearly fully liberated. And he was a spastic. He could barely walk. He could barely talk. And one of the other monks said, oh, Master, how is it so? I mean, they never would have thought this man would be even close to God. They said, well, Divine Mother is pleased with his devotion. And then the other man said, well, it must be very simple, Master. And he says, yes, that's what God loves. Just open your heart. So that's the devotional part. But then there comes a point where it can become emotional. I grew up in a very emotional church, a Baptist church in Los Angeles. And I remember my grandmother she was a saint. I mean, she was very, very deep. And her sister was a Kriyaban. And I remember when I got on the path and I was telling her what I was doing, she says, I know exactly what you're doing. And I knew she did, because she was so in her heart that she had very deep intuition, and just, I knew she was in communion with God in her own way. But in her church, which we would go to, it had written on the wall this motto, or not motto, but quote from the Bible, be still and know that I am God. And as a little girl, I would grow up in that church, and I would go there and I would look at that, and nobody ever was still in that church, ever. There was so much commotion and emotion, and Master called it the unholy ghost of emotion. And I would sit next to my mother, and everyone was all over the church in one way or another. I would hold my mother's hand, and as a little girl, I would pray, Lord, please don't let my mother do that. It was just just so much emotion in the church. But then when I came to Master, I realized that you have to have a deep longing, a deep calling, but you have to bring it up to the higher centers. It can't just spill out of your heart and go into emotion, and then your whole life is emotional and everything you do is emotional. And it's just a beautiful key of yoga that Master said, whip up the devotion and emotion in the heart, even, he said, but then you have to go in the stillness. Open your heart, chant with devotion. He would stay up all night calling to Kali, 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 and calling to Krishna. I've told those stories before at these classes. And he would weep for God, and he would say, cry for God, but then lift that energy up to the spiritual eye and sip the silence of God's presence. And this is what's missing from so much these days. There's a lot of beautiful chanting, beautiful love for God. But the deeper stage is when you can take that devotion, you take the love that you feel, and you take it into meditation, and you sit in the stillness and the silence with Divine Mother, with that presence within you. So what can you do to develop devotion? Well, one, chanting. Chanting's half the battle. Chanting with the music that we have, chanting on your own. But you can chant and then go in the silence and meditate And then when you feel restless, chant some more, and then go back into the silence. Open the heart, bring the energy up. Stay there as long as you can in the light and the vibration and the love that you feel. And then go back to chanting again, or reading something from whispers or songs of the soul, or prayer, or talking to God, or uniting your consciousness with God through prayer. And then go up again in the silence. And then go back into the heart. And then bring the heart's love back up into the spiritual eye, the seat of super consciousness, the seat of soul awareness, the seat of enlightenment. This is the seat of love, of devotion, but you have to bring that up to the higher centers. And so chanting and meditating, and then going back into meditation, reading, listening to Swamiji's music. There's some beautiful songs that he's written. Love is a Magician is a beautiful one to listen to. To Death I'm a Stranger is a beautiful one. Of the chants of Master, engrossed is the bee of my mind on the blue lotus feet of my divine mother. So beautiful. God, Christ, gurus, you can chant that. There's so many beautiful chants. Om Kali Om Kali Om. But the heart's energy has to be balanced, or it will spill out into emotion. To go deep in meditation, you need both the heart's energy plus lifting that up and going deep into the silence. I would like to close with these words from Swamiji about bringing the Guru into your heart, into your meditation. He says, bring the Guru into your practice. Bring his grace. This could be into meditation or Kriya meditation specifically. Bring his grace in. Feel him sitting right beside you. Feel that your own body is his body. Mentally ask him to guide you. You can think of it in this way, that your body is the Guru's body in meditation, as if he were merged in you. This is what happens when the Guru enters you and fills you with divine blessings. He actually merges his astral body with yours and fills you in that way with his magnetism. And finally, to close, from affirmations for self-healing on devotion. Listen to these words and we'll do the affirmation. In the quest for God, the unfolding of the heart's natural love in the form of deep devotion is the prime requisite for success. Without devotion, not a single step can be taken towards him. Devotion is no sentiment. It is the deep longing to commune with and know the only reality there is. Let's do this affirmation together to close our class. Close your eyes. Let's inhale, tense your body, then exhale and relax. Again. Feel the energy of the heart. And fix your gaze up at the point between the eyebrows, lifting the heart's energy up to that point of super consciousness. All the power, the love that you feel, the presence of God. Bring it up to the point between the eyebrows and say this affirmation out loud after me. With the sword of devotion, I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion. With the deepest love, I lay my heart at the feet of omnipresence. With the sword of devotion, I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion. With the deepest love, I lay my heart at the feet of omnipresence. With the sword of devotion, I sever the heartstrings that tie me to delusion. with the deepest love, I lay my heart at the feet of omnipresence. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Ask Nitendra to join now with a few questions.
Thank you, Dhyanaji. I'll just put up the list of questions here. The first question, Dhyanaji, is there a balance between an outward ritual or the rituals that we do versus the inward devotion that we should maintain?
Is there a what?
A balance between the outward ritual and the inward devotion that we should have.
Yes, you need both. I mean, we need forms. I have murtis, I have pictures of the gurus, I have holy objects on my altar, I hold them, I pray to the gurus. Yes, you go on pilgrimage to be inspired, to bathe in the Ganges, to touch the holy relics at each of these places, to go into Babaji's cave, to feel the vibrations. You need the outward form. Every day you do some ritual, even if it's doing the rituals of prayer and chanting. Those are rituals, aren't they? And calling to God. But you have to go within at some point. You can't just keep going outward, 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 outward. And this is what most people do. They keep going out and they never go in. So Master would say, you cook the meal, but you don't eat it. People are cooking, 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 but there's no eating. So I think the balance is, yes, have outward things that remind you of God, that calm your mind, that make you concentrate. That I remember Swamiji had this big beads, a mala of Lahiri Mahashaya that he had. Now it's in the Shrine of the Masters in America. But he came to Italy. We were all living there at one certain point, and he was so thrilled. He was driving somewhere, and we met him. He must have arrived at the ashram. And he said, come everybody, come everybody. He opened up the trunk and he brought these big, big beads of Lahiri Mahashaya. And each person, he just hold this, hold this, hold this. Yes. We have murtis in most all of our centers, don't we? I mean, they bring out the love and the devotion, but don't stop there. That's the point. Go within afterwards.
Thank you, Dhyanaji. Two more questions. The first one is, when often we get joyful emotions while serving God, let's say while chanting or while working with other Guru Bhais. So is that wrong to have those joyful emotions?
Not at all. I mean, you don't want to be glum with a long face all the time, serving, oh yeah, here's the cake I promised you, and here's the goodies, and here's the prasad or whatever. It just, joy comes as you're longer and longer on the path. You become more and more filled with joy. And as that, I mean, that's a good statement to say that you're heading in the right direction, that there's joy on your face, is joy. I mean, look at your old pictures. You probably don't look very good. Pre-path, before getting on the path, and after, before you got Kriya and after, you just feel joyful. There's love and there's joy. You can't help it. It's overflowing. So yes, in meditation, sometimes you're just so happy. I mean, the deep state is bliss. So joy it's going in the direction of pure bliss in God. So yes, express it as you serve. You don't want to get giggly all the time. I mean, that can go into too much emotion, but I was with a really dear friend yesterday, and we were so full of joy. We were just so happy. And I know it was Master's joy. I know it was, because it was there all day long. So yes, God gives you that joy. Don't push it away. I know a lot of people think I'm on the path, so I can never smile anymore. I can't laugh. I can't be with my friends. I have to look serious. And, people put you in a box as a teacher. That teacher laughed, I mean, wow, what a wonderful thing. The joy is overflowing. So it's a good sign.
Thank you, Dhyanaji. One last question. How can we use emotions in a positive manner for our spiritual growth?
The best way is you can't always do it because there are a lot of emotions. People have their emotions because they're upset with somebody. There's an emotion, they're angry. There's emotion because there weren't, whatever, didn't happen the way they wanted. There's an emotion of fear. There's emotion of worry. There's an emotion of longing for things that aren't yours. How many people really cry for God? That's something you want to have. But the best way to, even with that, is to bring it inside. I mean, I remember once a friend of mine died, and I chanted for 2 weeks, crying on the harmonium. No, I didn't want to hear anybody. People kept trying to talk with me and read this. Nothing would work. But that harmonium and just letting it out. But then I was able to bring it up in meditation. So it's what I want to say to close. It's not a quick fix that, many people have pains in their heart. This happened and that happened. Somebody passed away. Somebody's in the hospital. You can't just put a Band-Aid on that and say, feel better. It takes time. You've been betrayed or this happened. And I know what people mean. So what do? You close the heart. But you close it not just to that person or that situation. Your heart is closed to God. And I think that's the main part of this talk today is you have to get to a point where you keep opening your heart no matter what happens. Door of my heart, open wide, I keep for thee. At the beginning, you have a little crack in the door. Then you keep going. Then somebody hurts you and then it goes back but we have to keep trying, keep loving God, no matter what pains we have, what sorrows, what suffering. And that's where a lot of emotion comes out. Things, it's painful. The life isn't what you expected, and it never will be. That's what I've come to understand. And so if we focus our love to God, and even if it's an emotion, focus that emotion to God, and you'll find in time, lifting it up, it will turn to a beautiful life of love for God and devotion. God bless you all. Thank you, Nitendra.